Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Onita and today's video we are going to be doing the wrap up for the month of March. We are almost in April, that is scary. You might want to turn the volume up if you're watching this because my mom's out there on the phone and I don't want to be too loud, but I might fix that up in editing anyway, so anyway. In my TBR, which I will leave linked down below, I had some, I don't remember how many books I had, but I wanted to read 7 books. There were 7 books that I wanted to read. I think I may have skipped out on a couple of them in that TBR, but I ended up getting 6 books done. Unfortunate. Well, not unfortunately, because I still read 6 and that was still pretty damn good. We are going to go in the order that I read them in. And I just realized I forgot my laptop with my notes. Yay! So we are going to go in order that I read the books in. Got my laptop so I can actually talk about stuff. The first one that I read in the month of March is The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. And it is the first of 2 short story collections in the Witcher series. And it's about a witcher by the name of Geralt of Rivia. And it is about how his powers work, how witches work, and how they are made. Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher, uses his legendary power and lifelong training to protect the innocent by hunting the vile fiends that ravage the land. But not all monsters are evil, and not everything fair is good. I really loved it. I thought it was a really good, strong introduction into the Witcher universe and the world of The Witcher. It is full of magical creatures such as elves, dragons, wizards, unicorns, as well as mentions of unicorns. Basically the staple in fantasy, as well as other creatures that are not in your usual fantasy books, because this is a Polish fantasy book. The author is Polish. And it has a very fairy tale-esque writing and feel with it. I think that the short stories in here are a really great way to introduce the world, the characters, the magic. There were some stories that I wish would have been a little bit longer and I wanted to have been a little bit more explained. Some of them ended on a bit of a cliffhanger that just left me wanting more. And there was some mysteriousness about it as well, like Iola from, now let me see if I can get this right, Militel, I'm pretty sure, and the trains as well. I'm hoping that the next set of short story collections will further explain the world and like the trains and everything, but I don't think so because he leaves the trains, so we may not. So I think it's really up to you how you want to perceive it. This next thing I'm going to say might be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I don't like Geralt and Yennefer's relationship in this. Sue me if you want to, but don't throw stones at me, don't at me. I'm hoping that we'll get a little bit more from them in maybe not the second short story collection, but maybe in the main books, I'm hoping. I don't know. And if you didn't know, The Witcher is as you can see a little sticker there, it's on Netflix, so it's like a major TV show. Show is an adaptation of this. I'm quite surprised and impressed with how well it was adapted for me. I felt that way anyway. Because in some ways there was like a lot of similarities with the book and the show, and I can only guess and hope, fingers crossed, that the second book is going to be similar-ish in a way, because we did not get to see Ciri in this one, but you do in the second one, and I'm wondering if the first 2 stories in the short story collection are so like what you see in the first season is what you read in the first and second set of short story collections. That's just my guess, and I'm probably right with that. I loved Geralt's sarcastic sense of humor. Really spoke to me. I'm a bit of a sarcastic person myself, so it was good to see that, and it made me chuckle a little bit every now and then. And I liked the themes of how humans are more monsters than the monsters being the monsters, and also what humans are doing to the environment in which the monsters live in. like for example excavating for farming and all that stuff like that. Overall, I thought it was a really great introduction into the Witcher universe and this series, and I'm curious to see how the next installment will go. The second book I read in the month of March is a collection of poetry and prose. That is Pillow Thoughts by Courtney Pepinell. So it is a collection of poetry and prose about heartbreak, love and raw emotions. It is divided into sections to read when you feel you need them most. Make a cup of tea and let yourself feel. I don't know what to say about poetry other than there was a few months there where I wasn't feeling so good about myself, and this helped me a lot. It was exactly what I needed to hear, and sometimes poetry can be like that. I actually have a video talking about poetry and like the poetry collections I have, that why I love poetry. So I'll also leave that video linked down below if you want to check that out as well. But I don't really have too much to say about this other. Does anyone ever really know how to talk about poetry other than like I really liked it because poetry can be so personal to people? I really liked it. I gave it a 5 stars, and I forgot to say I gave Last Wish a 4 stars out of 5. So before I talk about the next book, I just quickly want to say I ended up adding 2 books onto this TBR, onto the TBR that I had already made and created. I would have gotten them all done if I hadn't have taken so long with another book, but this is one of the books that I ended up adding on. I wasn't expecting to read this month, but because it was a short book, I thought, well, I can read it in a weekend, you know, and that is what I did. And the book I'm talking about is Later by Stephen King. It is a new released book. Jamie Conklin, the son of a struggling mother, just wants a normal childhood, which is made all the more difficult due to his unnatural ability to see the dead. His mother urges him to keep his ability a secret from everyone except herself. However, his ability comes at a great cost to him. When an NYPD detective draws him into the pursuit of a killer who has threatened to strike from beyond the grave. This was labeled as crime thriller. There is elements of that as well, but I see it more of a coming of age story. The way I see it, I think of Jamie's ability to see the dead as a sort of learning tool for life, and that you don't really understand things until you're older or later, which is the title of the book, on in life. Like the way I see it as well, you could also say is that Jamie's ability to see the dead is essentially a way for him to mature from a young age. Being a child of a single parent and knowing how strong and resilient and brave and courageous Jamie's mother is, experiencing those tough times himself, like it would make sense for him to grow up to be a mature person. But that's just the way I see it though. I could be completely wrong. If you've read it, please let me know what you think about it. We get to see Jamie throughout various stages of his life. When he first realised he had the ability to see the dead at age 6, up to about in his teens, like early teens. And the relationship between him and his mother is absolutely incredible. It really is. It's one of the highlights of the book. Jamie's mother is also a literary agent. She and her brother, which is Jamie's uncle, ended up founding the publishing house in which they work in. Like they founded it together is what I'm trying to say. The resilience of Jamie's mother is, like I said, is incredible. Through her brother's like shady dealings with the running of the publishing house and the global economic collapse of 2008, it's quite realistic and inspiring how much Jamie and his mother go through and how they overcome that. It was also really good to see how publishing houses work as well, and kind of like the behind the scenes look at that. And another plus as well, and a bit of a highlight of the book, there's LGBT plus rep. Well, it's actually like same-sex relationship representation in here as well. Jamie's mother and the NYPD detective are together, and he works and he figures that out later on in life. Like as he was older, he realized, oh, okay, so this is happening through a book he read. And it also echoes Stephen King's other book, It. the clown book, it has some little echoings and connections to that as well, because if you didn't know, Stephen King has this whole multiverse where all the books and all the characters are connected with each other. Like there's like connections and with it and all that kind of stuff, and it was really good to see. I really liked that. Trigger warnings for alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and mentions of rape. You don't get to see it. It's just a mentioning and just sort of a thing like, did it actually happen? Kind of thing. You have to read the book to understand what I'm trying to say. Overall, I gave it a 4 stars out of 5. The 4th book I read in the month of March is A Dance with Dragon Part 2, After the Feast by George R.R. Martin. And I don't want to say too much about the plot of it. All I'm going to say to you is what's written on the back of the thing, like the little blurb, and it says, the future of the 7 kingdoms hangs in the balance. I thought that the beginning chapters of this were a little bit slow, but I feel like if I had have read this straight after rereading the part 1 of book 5 in the series, that I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more. And I think that that my feelings toward this book would have, especially the beginning parts of it, would have been a bit different. I'm not going to say too much because spoilers. Don't worry, I'm not going to be spoiling anything. I will say that the world building is incredible, as it always is. And it's also immersive as heck as well. The food, oh, delicious, especially when you get to like the king and queens. Well, the kings and the queens of it, you know what I'm trying to say. They eat some good food, I tell ya. The religions in this world are very well thought out, and they are also quite interesting as well. I always find religions in fantasy settings to be quite interesting and very well realized. And of course, what is A Song of Ice and Fire if I don't talk about the politics in this series? Or at least mention the incredible detail that goes into this damn book or the series itself. You don't know who is on whose team, you don't know who is going to backstab who, or what game each character is playing, but it is all intrigue and it is all fun when it comes to the political side of it. We also get to see chapters from side characters or characters that you normally don't see perspectives from. One of those characters that we kind of follow is someone who is escorting the prince who was promised, young Griff, who I do not believe he is the prince who was promised. I do not believe he is Aegon at all. But we do get to see some of those side characters as well, where they have such a thirst and a want and a need and a desire to get, to claim the throne and the kingdom of the 7 kingdoms. And they will do whatever the hell they can to get to it. And I just enjoy that part of it, because everyone thinks, oh, I have the rights to it. I have the rights to it. Who does? I mean, the one that kind of does in a way is Daenerys. Only because fucking Robert wanted to be king himself and he was jealous and the kind of shit, so he did this all the big fucking raid and all the kind of crap. But only because the Targaryens were mad themselves. And anyway, it's a whole big story. I don't want to get into it, but this is not a spoiler at all because we all know what happens, but Jon also gets stabbed and dies in this book as well. I'm wondering if Jon is also will turn out to be Aegon like he did in the show. Because just the way Melisandre was, because she's also in Winterfell as well, and Queen Selyse, because Stannis is still alive in the book series, right? It's the way that Melisandre was hanging around Jon. I'm just wondering if Jon is going to be Aegon in this series. Also just the way she was talking to him as well, and just, that's just my theory. I could be wrong. And I gave this, what did I give this? Oh yeah, I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really need Winds of Winter right now. This edition actually comes with a little sneak peek of it. I might read that later on, I don't know, but it does come with a little sneak peek, like an excerpt, but I just need the whole book now. Book number 5 is Dragonfly Amber. It is book 2 to the Outlander series, and it is by Diana Gabaldon. This is the one that took me the longest to read. I finished it Monday is when I finished the book. I had have had this book finished earlier. I definitely would have read a book I had wanted to read, which was Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. I would have definitely gotten to that one if I had had this book finished, but I just didn't get around to it, which is why I have later, and another book I'm going to be talking about after this one, replacement of The Last Dictionary by Pip Williams. So I would have gotten to Dictionary of Lost Words easily if I hadn't have taken so long to read this one. So it follows two timelines in a way, kind of thing. The first one, which we get to see in part 1 and part 7, which takes place in modern day in like the 1940s, I believe it is. And that one is about Claire bringing her daughter Brianna to Scotland to tell her who her real father is. And she enlists the help of Roger to do that. She knows Roger from way back, from like years and years ago, when Claire was on her honeymoon with Frank. In the first one, Roger was a little boy then, but then she travelled to 1740s Scotland, and, well, we all know what happens there. Well, for those who have read the book, if not, read it please, it is incredible. And so she enlists the help of him in the future, kind of modernish day type of thing, for 20 years actually. 20 years, yes. She's kept the secret for 20 years of who Brianna is. She enlists the help of Roger. He's like an adult now, I guess you could say. Then she brings Brianna with her, to Scotland to tell her about her parentage and who her father is. And meanwhile, we also go back in the past, which is where the bulk of the plot of the book is, and it's where Jamie and Claire go to Paris to stop the Battle of Culloden from happening. So they have to become a part of like Paris social life and try to convince the king, who wants to take the throne over Scotland, to not happen, because there's this big battle of the Scottish did not want the Stuarts to, like, I'm no historian at all, so if I'm getting this wrong, please let me know. But the story goes, the Scottish rebelled against the Stuarts because the Scottish, or the Jacobites, I think they're the Jacobites, or are they the ones that want the Stuarts? Anyway, the ones that don't want the Stuarts to regain the throne over Scotland, it's basically like a rebellion, like a war of that, and that war happened in Culloden. So they're trying to stop that from happening. So I'm hoping I'm making sense. If not, just go on Google, which I should actually probably do some research myself because it's all very interesting and intriguing, and just go from there about the history of Culloden and the Scots and the British and who reigns who and stuff like that. I had said in my reading vlogs that there are trigger warnings, like heavy trigger warnings for rape, mentions of rape, a sexual assault of a minor, and also miscarriage as well. So like I said, it introduces Brianna and Roger. I don't want to talk too much about it because I think you get the point of that already from the plot. There were like instances of Claire being a witch type of thing. She's not. She's a very strong, incredible woman, and I love her so very much. But there's really strong witchy, occult, magic vibes in this as well. And just characters who are portrayed as like, yeah, there's just occult and magic and witchiness kind of thing. Where back in the day, whenever something odd or something that would not be explained properly, or they couldn't explain it, they'd be like, oh, you're a witch, and all that kind of stuff. There's a great attention to detail with the costumes and the world and the surroundings, and just the costume design is so good. Jamie and Claire often bump into someone from the past, from the first book in book 2 to the Outlander series. And whenever their relationship hits a bit of a road bump, or like a bit of a conflict, I guess you could say, they talk about it like adults, like mature adults. And they don't whinge and bitch at each other. They're not childish about it. They're mature, and they actually talk about problems in the relationship or thoughts and feelings that they have about certain things that happened in the past and stuff like that. And I love that. I really love that. And because at the end of the day, they have a really great love and respect for each other, and it is beautiful to see. The beginning confused me a little bit, only because there are so many kings to keep track of, especially when it comes to the dialogue between the kings and the politicians and stuff like that. It just kind of over my head a little bit, but the author does explain it, like dumbs it down a little bit for you through Claire's thoughts. But towards the end of it, I did get an understanding of it, so I don't think I really gave myself enough credit for that, because it does make a whole lot of sense towards the end of the book. Not that the end of the book, like, not that you should understand it during, like, towards the end of the book, because you should just get it when you're reading it, but maybe I always did, I just wasn't paying attention to it, kind of thing. Anyway. And oh my god, the last few hundred pages of it was so fast paced, and I was flipping through the pages so fast because I was just like, oh my god, what is happening? Oh my gosh, no, 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 no. I just was desperate to know what was going to happen. And oh, it was gut-wrenching towards the end. It hurt. It hurt like a bitch. There are 2 point of view narratives in this book. The first one is through Claire's point of view, and the third one is from, like, the third point of view narrative is from both Roger's, and we get a little bit of Jamie's perspective as well when they're talking about things from the past. And you would think that having a mashup of both perspectives would be a little bit jarring, but it actually flowed on quite nicely, and it was a really incredible book. And I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, even though, like, the emotions I felt towards the end of it was like a 5-star for me. Just the beginning and the politics, like the real world history politics of it, and my kind of little problems with it brought it down to 4.5. Even though my feelings are feeling like a 5, it's a 4.5 is my final rating. Okay, I have to be really quick with this last one because my battery is running flat. So the last one I read is Breach of Peace, which is The Lawful Times .5, and it is a book by Daniel Green. He is quite a well-known and well-established fantasy booktuber. I've been a fan of him for a while. This review I'm doing is not because I'm a fan of him, it's because I'm judging his work, not him as a person. And when an imperial family is found butchered, officers of God are called to investigate. Evidence points to a rebel group trying to stab fear into the very heart of the empire. Inspector Cleed begins a harrowing hunt for those responsible, but when a larger conspiracy comes to light, she struggles to trust even the officers around her. It was a really strong first novella for the series, and there's going to be 3 novellas which lead up to the main books, like the full-length books in the series. It's quite a grim, dark, violent book as well. People had some issues with the portrayal of police in this because, well, you can look it up yourself. I understand and respect the issues, but I can see it from a fictional point, and I can separate the realities of, like, police brutality and the, like, portrayal of police in this. I can manage to separate the two. I can see some echoes of reality into it, which serve as a great conversation starter. I think the police that Daniel is trying to portray is really good for the world he is trying to create. The novella reads quite fast, and towards the end of the book I was quite anxious to see what was going to happen to the characters and what was going to happen next, and with the events of what happened at the end of the book, I can only guess that we are going to get a continuation of some sort from that. To see some world building. I would have liked more of it. We got small little nuggets of information with, like, the history and the fantastical elements, like the creatures, the magic systems, the world building and everything like that. And that was quite intriguing. It really was. I'm hoping with the next installment that we will see more from that and it'll continue to grow from that. And hopefully we'll get to see more world building in the second one, because I was missing that a little bit in the first installment. Overall, I'm quite excited to see where the next novellas will take us, and I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen in the full-length novels. And I gave that one a 4 stars out of 5. It was a very strong start to a series, and very good for a YouTuber as well, and also for a debut author as well. So all good. Okay, I have to go now, but quickly, these are the books I read, as well as later, Dragonfly and Amber and Breach of Peace. I really had a good month this month for reading. Leave a like if you like this video. The option to subscribe to my channel is always there. You don't have to if you don't want to, but like I said, the option is always there. Leave a comment down below how many books you read, if you like them, have you read any of these books I have read, and whether you like them and what your opinions were about them. That is all for me. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!